Men are giving up on women, and there's a good reason for that. Less and less single men are attempting to find a romantic partner these days. And I'm not going to dive in depth into the data, but it is true. You can look it up. The data is out there. It's a lot like the unemployment rate, but for dating. Because it is also true that less and less men are participating in the labor force, just like how less and less men are choosing to participate in the dating market. There is quite possibly a correlation there in the sense that if you don't have a job, it makes it a lot harder to find a woman willing to date you. And one theory is that it all comes downstream from the employment issue. Like, it's nearly impossible to find a job, so men give up on trying to find employment, and that makes it even more difficult for those men to find any women willing to date them. So then eventually these men just give up altogether with trying to find employment or trying to get with women. But issues with the job market definitely is not the only issue, and it's probably not the main reason either, because as bleak as the economy is, most men do still have jobs. So I think there's a few reasons why men have given up on women, and they're all kinda related, but the key reason that men have given up on women is inflation. And I'm not talking about the economy, I'm not talking about the price of milk and bread, I'm talking about how women's value in the sexual marketplace has inflated rapidly over the past few years. Since the dawn of society, women have always been the choosers when it comes to romantic relationships. Men demonstrate their value to the world through accomplishments, or in other words, men achieve things in the real world which raises their status, and then women decide which man they partner up with based on their options. I mean, forget about humans, it's even like this with birds. Male birds are all colorful and sing-songy and all that, and then female birds are gray, brown, drab, and frankly just boring. I mean, bird watchers aren't even trying to look at these boring ass female birds. Have you ever seen a mallard? Like, a male mallard has a beautiful, shiny, emerald green head. It's just a very beautiful duck. And then look at a female mallard. Ugly. It's just like brown, gray, whatever. But anyways, so women have always been the ones with the control over who dates who. Oh, and I just thought of another one. Like, look at a male cardinal. That's what we think of a cardinal as. It's a bright red cardinal. Then look at a female cardinal. Like, what? Like, female birds suck worse than female humans. Okay, but anyways, back to the thing I'm talking about. Right. So, women have always been the ones who control who dates who, but now with the internet and social media, and especially with dating apps, women have a highly inflated appraisal of their own value, which leads to them being unreasonably selective over who they'll date. So basically, women have unrealistic expectations. It used to be that women could realistically appraise their own value, so they would actually know where they stand in the social hierarchy. But now every 4 out of 10 low-tier Becky can post her pics up on Instagram and get hundreds of likes, lickety-split, just like that. Average-looking and below-average-looking women can get on Tinder or Hinge or whatever, and within hours, they'll have so many matches, they couldn't possibly sort through them all. And you can say that means that these women have unrealistic evaluations of their own value, which is what I just said, but I actually think that's wrong. I think what it means is that women's value in the sexual marketplace actually has increased. So they're not being unrealistic. A woman that would have been of average value by 1994 standards is actually really highly valuable by 2024 standards. Because value isn't something intrinsic. Value is just what society determines it to be. Like, diamonds aren't valuable because they're useful. They're not useful at all. Diamonds are valuable because society says so. That's it. People are willing to pay lots of money for diamonds, and that is the one and only reason that they are valuable. It's the same for modern women. An overweight, lousy, miserable, hateful woman with no ambition is actually highly valuable in today's society. That's just how it is. And to put it plainly, a lot of men just cannot afford these modern women. What's the currency men use to attain women? Status. Well, men's status has not kept up with women's value inflation. Women's value has inflated so much, men just can't afford them anymore. Now, of course, men could work harder and try to raise their status more and more by, lifting weights, grinding to make more money, etc. But first of all, none of that looks maxing, status maxing stuff is guaranteed to work. And in my experience, I would say it's more likely to not work. And secondly, to a lot of men, it's just not worth it anyways. Just like a man today would have to work more hours at a more prestigious career compared to their fathers to be able to afford the same standard of living that their high school dropout dad was able to afford with his factory job, a man today has to be comparatively more good looking, have more wealth, a bigger social circle, and just higher status in order to attract a high quality woman. You can't blame a guy for choosing to drop out of the labor force in this bleak economy. And you really can't blame a guy for choosing to drop out of the dating pool in this destitute, hyper-inflated dating economy. But the parallels between the dating economy and the monetary economy don't stop there. Just like how an increasingly large portion of all wealth is hoarded by a select few elite billionaires, while the rest of us continue to struggle more and more just to make a living, an increasingly large portion of women are hoarded by a select few high-value men, while us average and below-average guys struggle to even have an average-looking girl look our way without scoffing at us. The comparison isn't perfect here because with billionaires hoarding wealth, it truly is the billionaires themselves hoarding all the wealth. But like I said, women are the choosers when it comes to dating, so it's not really accurate to say that a select few high-value men are hoarding all the women. It's more like all the women are choosing to only go with a select few high-value men. And I know some of you will call me a simp for this, but whatever. I can't really blame women for this. This is logically how they should be behaving in accordance with their value. It all makes sense. So they're not doing anything illogical here. Their value has increased. Their value has inflated. And most men's value has decreased, or at best stayed the same. That leaves less and less men with a high enough value to match the relatively high value of the average woman. It might seem illogical, it might seem unfair, because we've been conditioned to think that there should be one man for every woman. Roughly 50% of the world's population are men and 50% women, and throughout most of human history, men and women's values relative to one another were at a certain equilibrium. But now men's value has gone down while women's value has skyrocketed, and the result is that most women can afford a high quality man, so that's what they go for. Unfortunately, there aren't enough high value men to go around, and what we see is that being the case, women are willing to share. It was a commonly held belief that a woman would want her man to be faithful to her and her only. But now that men and women's values are so unbalanced, we see that never really was the case. That was just how things have been throughout most of the course of human history, because the value of the average man and the value of the average woman were roughly equivalent throughout most of human history. But now that most women are highly valuable and most men are not, what happens is a select few high-value men get all the women. So I think it's completely understandable why a man in today's society would just give up on trying to find love. Even if you max out your looks and your wealth and career and everything else, you're still going to be competing with the most elite high-value men at the top. Because women don't mind sharing those men, and obviously those men don't mind dating multiple women. And not everybody has equal potential. The highest value men that are hoarding all the women, they have their status maxed out to the gills, and they started with an elite potential. Chances are any given man you pick off the streets, and yes, that means you, whoever you are listening to this, you probably don't have elite potential. So even if you manage to reach the absolute peak of your potential, you still can't compete with those elite men at the top. It's over. Why are you even trying at this point? Why waste your time? I'm done. I'm done with this. It's unfair, but it's realistic, and it's just how it is. But a lot of guys, including myself, we're not taking this anymore. I mean, I don't know that boycotting the dating market is really going to do anything. I mean, actually, I do know that it's not, but it's all we can do, man. There's no reason to try, anyways. So it is what it is. You know, personally, I'm excited about the idea of AI and realistic android robots that look like real women. Couple that with some realistic AI that can be programmed to love me, that can be programmed to choose me. Hey, women, you're going to be out of a job soon.